These days, we've become all too familiar with the frequency of school shootings. This matter of mass shootings became public view in a big way as recently as 1986 on August 20th, when Mr. Patrick Sherrill shot 14 of his coworkers at the Edmond, Oklahoma post office building. Even today, such a rampage is still referred to as going postal. Now let's get a perspective on this in order to shortstop the kind of anecdotal challenges, those contradictory little stories that arise out of early America's history. The apex, or apogee, the high point of U.S. history is certainly the decade or two following the World War II. What concerns us today will be our decline from that high point. So we will not be distracted by stories about the Civil War or the Indian Wars or the Wild West. In 1941, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor unified our country as never before. Like a sleeping giant with a population of only 132 million, America woke up from the Depression, stretched its financial muscle with Keynesian economic confidence, and realized all of its potential greatness. We sent our young men off to war in Europe and the Pacific, and we put our young women to work in the factories. My mother assembled the triggers for landmines. My dad was a crew chief maintaining B-25 bombers in China for the Flying Tigers in the Army Air Corps. That war cost us 400,000 servicemen, including women, over a 3.5-year period, an average of 300 killed every day. Please imagine today's daily newspaper listing the names of 300 Americans killed in action. And there were 300 other names in yesterday's paper, and there will be 300 more new names tomorrow. And imagine that this will continue for 3.5 years. But we won. With fantastic industry and fantastic technology, and with fantastic determination and fantastic heroism, America's greatest generation whipped the whole world. So, when that greatest generation came back home, they were firmly convinced that nothing was beyond their reach. They built an interstate highway system that dwarfed Hitler's Autobahn. They put televisions in every home. They filled the skies with long-range passenger jetliners. They found cures for polio and other diseases, and they began the long, hard road to genuine racial equality. They rebuilt Europe and Asia in order to secure firm alliances, and they built a vast missile system to hold communism at bay. For nearly 20 years after World War II, America's strength kept on growing. And then we suffered a mortal blow on November 22nd, 1963, in Dallas. As a baby boomer, I have lived through all of those years, the apex, the decline, and the recovery, and as these affairs unfolded, along with my cohorts, my fellow baby boomers, together we remember those years pretty clearly. So we will be the authorities on this history of America's decline from that post-war apex. In my next video, my fourth of the series, we will need to examine free love, suicides, and school shootings. You might wonder how these three could possibly be related, but they are in a sequential cause and effect kind of way. Here is your empirical or theoretical basis in a nutshell. Ever since the 1930s, behavioral scientists like Ivan Pavlov over in Russia and others here in America have been amazed by the consistent results that they observe when they crowd too many lab rats together, or mice or whatever, together in a pen for too long. Quite simply, the natural social order breaks down under the strain of overcrowding, and the rats turn on each other in perverse ways. Rape, sodomy, bullying, murder, and suicide become the order of the day. This breakdown can be assuaged or antagonized, as the observers may choose, by satisfying the subjects or by teasing, taunting, and tormenting their subjects with environmental controls such as the lighting, with noises, and with the food distribution. As the saying goes, if we can control the environment, we can control the behavior. Subsequent to Dallas, a homegrown communist revolution in America led by secular humanists, supported by the mafia's muscle and the Democratic Party's rubber stamp, sought to manipulate Americans like so many rats in a pen. The political mechanics of that coup d'etat in Dallas are described in the free sample reading of this little book I've written entitled The Teflon Tales. You can find that free sample reading at this website, www.lulu.com/spotlight/W, by clicking under the cover page for more detail, and then for preview, and then by clicking to allow Adobe Flash to get the pop-up sample. Then you might need to click preview again. And by the way, you will view this material anonymously. The Lulu publisher will protect the identity of visitors to that website, even if you buy one of the books, and you can even use PayPal to do that. Now, once the Cultural Revolution was firmly in place after Dallas, the most pervasive influences were illicit drugs and a movement called free love. In that free reading of 1983, you'll find that the sale of illicit drugs had been restricted to the black neighborhoods for the past 30 years, since the end of Prohibition in 1933, by some kind of a gentleman's agreement. So prior to Dallas, illicit drugs were out of fashion in the white neighborhoods. In fact, for most of us, they were unthinkable. But after Dallas, Dr. Timothy Leary and the mass media, captive to the revolution, introduced LSD-25 to every neighborhood, claiming to have had spiritual, psychedelic experiences. And the gateway to other drugs was left wide open. During my senior year in high school in 1963 and 64, the U.S. population had grown from the pre-war 132 million to about 190 million. That's about a 45% increase, with 25 million of us in high school and junior high. That is, our libidos were raging with hormones. After Dallas, the Cultural Revolution instituted the free love movement, when Mario Savio began shouting the F word on the Berkeley campus mall. The publicity for this free speech movement eventually released the old restraints against all kinds of sexual activity, and most of us thought that was just great. As the years passed and illicit drugs became more and more common in the white neighborhoods, more and more of us had gone off to college or to war, or had otherwise left our parents' homes, and we were able to subscribe to free love. Some of us literally danced naked in the streets, and my boomer generation sort of invented streaking. One of the immediate results of these influences was a rising suicide rate, which was reversed in 1983 upon President Reagan's Teflon recovery. He shut down the drug trade hard and cleaned up the streets. But the current spate of school shootings is a residual result, delayed by a generation or two. You see, those two influences are still lingering, drugs and free love, and they have affected our parenting of subsequent generations. In addition, the U.S. population has increased by another 75% to 334 million people since the Cultural Revolution began. So some of the effects are still slowly accumulating. In a free love environment, young people are not shielded from the darker elements of sex play. It is too easy for them to be lured into patterns of abuse, such as bullying, perversions, unstable relationships, and even prostitution. Secular humanists are still manipulating us with those influences so that their program is steadily creeping forward. As recently as 1999, on April 20th, the Columbine High School shootings shocked us all when Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, 18 and 17 years old, killed 15 and injured 21 of their schoolmates in Littleton, Colorado. Since then, mass shootings have become quite fashionable, entirely too common. We need to clarify the connection between those influences and these morbid results. We can reverse those effects if we will focus on the causes and on a carefully calculated set of corrections. Clearly, my next video is going to be a tough discussion. It could get pretty personal for a lot of people. So take time to brace yourself, because it's too late to get even with anyone. The authors of this mess have largely passed away, and those participants who remain include way too many innocent, ignorant people who were really just along for the ride. So what can we do? If we can't do anything, why bother? Well, of course, we can, or else we should not bother. We cannot bring back the dead, and we cannot hope to identify and prosecute the guilty. We could never begin to sort out the survivors. But we can dismantle those influences that caused these many, many crimes against humanity. And we can erect new influences that will heal our wounds. We can heal the affliction of drug abuse that rages across our nation. And we can offer our children the guidance and supervision that will protect them from sexual abuses and offer them satisfying love lives. Just as President Reagan stopped the Cultural Revolution in January 1983, we can stop the creeping advances of secular humanism today. And just as the greatest generation made America greater than ever before, and as Ronald Reagan made America great again, we can install a system of faith-based humanics that will offer all of us the hope of a stable society in command of a sustainable planet. That system and that hope will be based upon truth, choice, and responsibility. We can do this. We are better than rats in a pen. We can discover our problems and we can invent our solutions. My next video, my fourth, will tell us how free love and illicit drugs can produce suicides and mass shootings. In that little book, 1983, The Teflon Tales, the necessary premises of faith-based humanics are explained. You can prepare yourself by reviewing the previous video on YouTube, by searching for my channel, 1983 Teflon, video number 2, Making Peace with Our Enemies, and by checking out the free sample reading of 1983, The Teflon Tales, at this publisher's website, www.lulu.com/spotlight/W, In the meantime, be patient, be calm, take time to put away your fears, your anger, and any hatred that you might be harboring. If you believe in God, turn there for support and guidance. And if you don't believe, just search your heart for the most congenial perspective that nature can provide to social creatures such as we are. I'll be back before November. That's when I will file for public office. After that, it will be all about the campaign for unarmed constables in our troubled communities across the land. No segment of our people should be left out of this recovery process. Everyone has the right and the responsibility to participate. We are all in this together. We are all included. These issues transcend every diversity you can imagine.